We're back with Book of Experts TV, and today's episode, we're talking about the truth about consulting. Yeah, the hidden truth that you may not know, the big secret that people need to understand to make their consulting go from, six figures, kind of like a job, like you bought yourself a job and maybe not even a good one, to actually building an enterprise, a seven-figure enterprise. There are a few steps you have to hit to make that happen. Today's guest is going to give us the inside story.
Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
Tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me.
Welcome to Book of Experts, Frank Bria. I can't believe it took us this long for me to get you on here, but the timing is perfect because you've got a big announcement, a book that just came out yesterday, and we're going to dig deep into that.
Thanks. Really appreciate you having me on. It's an honor.
Well, I'm excited. I think this is a topic that is, there's so many things to unpack here, but Book of Experts, we have a number of folks in the consulting space, the coaching space. They are subject matter experts. But honestly, they're struggling on the business side because they've got the wrong vehicle to get them where they want to go. And I know you've broken this down. I know you've got the personal story. So I'm excited to hear more about that. Where I'd like to start, though, Frank, is you wrote a book 5-6 years ago called Scale.
Yeah. And
this new book that just released yesterday is called Scalable Consulting. What has changed in that 5 or 6 year period that inspired you to rewrite the book, bring out the new story, and share what people need, what you're seeing change in the market?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting shift, right? I mean, even people could even say this year has been an interesting shift for people, and we'll get into some of that because some of that is related. But back in 2015, I had just been about 2 years in to launching a new business model. I started consulting back in, 1999. And so I built up a fairly large consulting practice for myself. I say large consulting practice. That doesn't mean that I had people working for me, but I was busy a lot. And, it just made that shift over. And there was a lot of tumult associated with that shift. So it was a good time to write about that. I would say now what we're seeing is first of all, the tools available to allow you to have a scalable model are so much more than they were before. The techniques that people use to build their businesses online, we've gone through some sifting. There's some stuff that's worked really well, some stuff that hasn't. And I've had an opportunity since 2015 to work with thousands of entrepreneurs and actually see them go through it. And so there's a little bit more learning involved. In 2015, it was me and my Fortune 500 multinational company clients kind of walking through what works and doesn't work. And so I think when people read the Scale book the 2015 book, it's a little more theoretical. I mean, there's some good practical stuff in there, but it's a little more theoretical. This is as pragmatic as it goes. I mean, we dropped from probably 100,000 feet down to ground level, and it's literally, what do you do tomorrow? And I think that just is an outcropping of seeing what's been working and not working in the folks I've been working with over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I want to talk about that tumult that you described for a second, Frank, because I think there was a pain point before we actually get into the scalable consulting, like what people need to know today. I want them to understand why you came at this and came at this because you felt it on the family front. I mean, you were on the road, sitting in hotels, missing family time. Like there was real pain associated to what you had created for yourself. You were successful by however, some folks
Yeah,
want to
monetarily.
find that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, and frankly, from some of the other things that, when you start consulting, you have certain role models that you look to that help you define what that success is going to be. Right. So Up in the Air, the movie Up in the Air, with George Clooney, you look at that and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, this guy's, just basically pops in, he stands up in a meeting and says stuff and people do what he say. And then he flies back off someplace else and he's always staying in these gorgeous hotels. And I used to get a little bit of that, being nothing like what the movie is, but I used to get a little bit of that. People are like, oh, Frank, you were in Prague last week. How was Prague? And I'm like, I don't know. It looks kind of like a hotel room. So, and I was being a little funny and facetious about it, but yes, it was underlying that was fundamentally this mismatch between what the expectations were for being a successful consultant and not. And for me, it was travel. I've talked to plenty of other consultants and worked with other consultants where it wasn't the travel time or the time away from home. It was the time invested in client delivery, right? So, they had to miss a kid's baseball game or something like that because they had to get something out the door. Or, they try to hire people, but they would never really quite get what they were doing. And they'd never do it the right way. And so, they had to move on and fire them or whatever. And so, everyone's pain looks a little bit different. But for me, it was, like even not just in the book, but in some of the marketing materials for the book, I tell some of the stories. Now, I almost passed out in Frankfurt in the airport. I was in Kiev and in a meeting and literally had to stand up and say, I'm sorry, I have to cancel this meeting. I have a family member who literally drove themselves to the hospital, and now I've got kids at home alone. Now I have to fly home. Just crazy stuff. And I guess I was slow to learn because it took me a couple of years to realize that, you have not really built yourself, what you thought you did. And so I think all of us grow up a little bit over time and our definitions of success change. And so for me, my definition of success is being able to live a life consistent with your priorities. That's to me success. And whatever you have to do to align all the pieces so that you can get that success, that's the goal. And so the point of scalable consulting is that business model of being the subject matter expert and being on point for your clients and being the center point of that focus is a failing model. It's a failure. And by that, I mean, you can't get to where you want to go from here. You will be in a dead end. Like I said, I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs. They all have to do a U-turn. And so what I've tried to do in Scalable Consulting is lay out the steps for making that shift and how to do that without starving to death, which, when I made that shift, I wasn't really brilliant and smart about how to do it. And a lot of people are worried, if I just like pull the plug on all my client work, where's all my money? So there are smart ways to go about doing that. So that's really what the book is about this time around.
Yeah. So I wanted to set that up right up front for folks so that they understood this isn't an either or, that there's one measure of success or you can have lifestyle balance, work-life balance. It's yes, and you can create a great synergy between the two. And like you said, align your life with the priorities. Now we get to dig into the fun stuff, how does that actually happen?
Right.
You came on my radar, Frank. Like, I know you've worked with some big names in the business. You were doing Scott Olford's work, sort of behind the scenes. Not the name that people knew, but orchestrating these big launches. Like, Scott came on the scene in a very big way, made a big impact, and was very influential with a lot of folks. And I know you have worked with Scott and other folks. What are these steps? What do people need if they're aspiring to grow the enterprise level, the multi-seven-figure business? What has to happen and what pieces have to be in place first?
Yeah. So the first thing I tell people is, before you look at anything else, you have to identify an outcome that your audience really wants. And most people go, oh, well, that sounds obvious, but it's not. I mean, a lot of people think they have an outcome identified that their audience wants, but it's not really an outcome. I'll give you an example. I talk to a lot of people and I say, okay, give me your one sentence, Like, what do you do for people? What do they get out? What do they get out of working for you? Yeah, right. Working from you. And so they'll say, oh, well, my clients get extreme clarity around how, and I stop them like, time out. And if you're using the word clarity, understanding, those kinds of words, you've already lost. You've lost the game, because clarity is not an outcome. Nobody wakes up at 2:00 in the morning and goes, I wish I could just get clarity. That's not what they're asking for. They want to do something or have something. And so I say, I hate to get crass, but there's really only 4 reasons anyone buys anything in this world. Okay. It's to make money, save money, stay out of jail, or have a better life. That's it. Those 4 things. You got to align yourself with one of those 4 and figure out what it is you do. So in the personal development space, a lot of times, HR consultants or executive coaches or life coaches, things like that, I'll say, you're saying that you want the person to have clarity, but in actuality, your client wants to do something with that clarity, right? So one of my clients one time came to me. She works with women and helps them get work-life balance. They're working moms, and she helps them get work-life balance. That was her thing. So when I said, what's the outcome? She said, work-life balance. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Like, what is work-life balance? Like, what exactly would someone do with that? It took us a little bit of time to get through it, because work-life balance is a phrase everyone kind of knows. So people have this idea in their head. Okay, I get it. But do you really I don't think people really do. So when she started talking to her clients, and this is a really important part that we go over in the book, the validation, the market validation component. She started talking to her market, to her clients, and asked them what they thought valuable work-life balance would look like. And what she found out was for her clients, it meant that they were able to find the time, the resources, and the internal energy to accomplish an audacious goal. One big audacious goal. And all the plates would keep spinning. So they would be able to do something for themselves, but still, the kids got off to school and did their homework, and the boss, all that stuff was great. So when she changed from, I hope you get work-life balance, to pick an audacious goal, imagine an audacious goal, and we're going to get it done in 12 months. And oh, by the way, if your audacious goal is to rearrange your pantry, I'm not your woman. That's kind of how she went to market. Completely changed how the market saw her, and frankly, all of the delivery mechanisms around what she did. The core kind of stayed the same, but at least now the market understood what it involved.
I love how you describe that, aligning it with the big audacious goal as this example, and also the fact that it repelled. These people aren't, if this is what you want, you're not my people. That's equally as important. And folks, if you're hearing this out there, catching the replay, however you're digesting, consuming this material, a lot of people are talking about getting clear on this point, but what Frank is doing is pushing back and saying what you've got is not good enough. Because if you're not getting the results right now, you might think you're validated in the market, but what's really happened is you had a few clients, you got results for them, and they bought you. They bought your strength and character and your charisma and your personality. They believed in you, but your program is not positioned enough, because when you get this right, the alignment of getting this right with the positioning, so you're really relevant in your market space, things just get so much easier. And I can't underline that enough. I'm just that's what I love about you, Frank, because you hammer this home. You're just not letting people off the hook until they get this right, because it's the big domino that's going to knock a whole bunch of others over. So let's talk about those coming dominoes too.
Yeah,
I know this is only part of what you do.
Sure. So I'm sorry, what was the question? I didn't.
So what comes after they get this right?
After? Yeah. So the outcome is essentially the definition of product, right? So that's what we start with. Then the next thing we have to do is we have to validate in the marketplace, and this is an area where a lot of people just skip completely. So we say, hey, before you go sell it, let's go talk to 7 people. It doesn't have to be a ton of people. Let's go talk to 7 people, and let's review the pain, where you want to go, the price point, how you're going to put the program together, and let's actually make sure that it is something that people want. The one of the things I think we often do is we stick with either like a mastermind of people that we talk to, or our good friends or whatever, and we try to get feedback from them. We may even go to a mentor or a coach. The fact is that unless the person you're talking to is someone who's going to write you a check, I always say that, like, no one writes checks anymore. But if they are going to give you the money, if they're going to Venmo you the cash or give you their credit card number, their opinion, frankly, isn't worth anything. And I tell my clients this too, because my clients will say to me, well, Frank, is this a good idea? And I say, I don't know. I'm not your target market, so let's go find out. So this is a tricky thing for people, because especially when people move online, they think, oh, I could just do this from behind my laptop. I can kind of be a laptop warrior where I type my little emails out and they go out and we figure it out. And marketing and sales experts a lot of times talk about testing. There's a lot of discussion, A/B testing, right? Put up pages, see where the traffic goes. Those kinds of techniques are incredibly advanced, and they're very far down the road, right? In order to get really good results out of A/B testing, you have to have a ton of traffic. You have to have a lot of things going on, and nothing beats just talking to someone face to face. Because even in A/B testing, you might find out that something is wrong, but you won't find out why. And that's the part where talking to real life human beings is really important. So you have to have validation. This is, none of us have like the best idea in the world. You got to go validate it. I love, because the pushback I get on this all the time is like, well, Steve Jobs said users don't know, like users don't understand. And I'm like, you know what? This is the thing. Like, I love Steve Jobs and I hate Steve Jobs. Like, Steve Jobs was brilliant. Steve Jobs was like 1 in a million, maybe 1 in a billion brilliant. Like, I can say like to people, I am not Steve Jobs. You were probably not Steve Jobs, at least not yet, right? You go start 3 startups and sell them all for $1 billion, and then you can say that. Until then, go ask people what they want. Stop pretending that you have all the answers. So that's a really important step that I think people just skip out completely.
So I love this. So people are going to vote with their pocketbooks, not their opinions. Ultimately, the votes that count are the ones from their pocketbooks. And we don't need a big data set here. We need, and I love you used a specific number, like it's only 7. Like anyone can go have 7 conversations. So you're talking my world now. I love this. What's next? What's the next step in the process?
Yeah. So now, of course, whatever offer you put together has got to be scalable, right? Otherwise we're not gonna break the mold here. So the fact is that in working with clients in a service business fashion, there really are only 5 ways to do it that keep you scalable. And so it doesn't matter so much what your offer is. It's more a matter of how you deliver it. It's the deliverability that makes it scalable, right? So if you go say, well, I just work one-on-one with people. Well, there's your problem, right? I mean, that was my problem when I first started, is that I had an offer where it was completely constructed around me showing up, listening, thinking about it, and going, oh, I know the answer, and then solving it. Well, that's not scalable. Like, I might be able to find one person like me to do it. I'm probably not going to find 2, definitely not going to find 10, and I'm not going to find 100. So forget scaling that model. So if you stick with these 5 building blocks, they're kind of like Legos. It doesn't really matter how you put them together. You're going to be fine as long as you use them. And they're delivery mechanisms we're familiar with. The first one is virtual training. Okay. Virtual training is an incredible tool. Like, now, bandwidth availability and internet availability means I can record a video and it can go everywhere, and I can basically train people virtually. This year, it's been a lifesaver, literally. Okay. So virtual training is an incredible building block. The second one is masterminds. Now, the thing about the word mastermind is it gets incredibly misused. So let me explain what I mean by a mastermind. Technically, a mastermind is a small group of people who come together to create an outcome for themselves. They hold themselves to a goal and they work together to achieve that goal. Now, there is a facilitator of that group that helps move things along, helps, monitor the dialogue between the folks. But fundamentally, The guru is not the facilitator, it's the group members themselves. Okay, that's a mastermind. Then you have group coaching, and that's the flip side. This is the thing that a lot of people get confused. Group coaching is where you have a group of people to come together, where there is a guru, so to speak, a leader who's coaching that group to particular outcome. Okay, so that's the third. The fourth are done for you services. Now, this is where people are going to go, whoa, Frank, you're talking about scalability. Like, what are you talking about done for you services? Let me be really clear. A done for you service is something where you have a very specific outcome, a very specific deliverable that you do for your client. That's very different than custom project work. That's very different than like Burger King, you can have it your way. Okay. It's like we do one thing and this is the way it goes. And it's like a manufacturing line. And there's a lot of great examples of corporations that are incredibly scaled that produce done for you services. And they do a really good job, but they're very specific about it. And the fifth are live events and workshops. Okay. Anytime you can get together in person or even virtually these days, and have a live experience with people is a great way to do it. And as long as you stick to those 5, you can put them together in lots of different ways, because by the way, each of these different delivery mechanisms provides a different benefit to your client. Virtual training, by the way, for example, is a great way to teach people things. Like if they need skills to go do something, it's a great way to teach. A group coaching format is actually not a really good way to teach things. And this is where a lot of people get things mixed up. They'll say, oh, well, I'm going to teach you that in my group coaching call. Well, that's a horrible way to teach things, frankly. We know this from learning theory. The great thing about virtual training is if I'm going to learn something, I'm watching a video, I can stop, pause, rewind, take notes, watch it again. That's really hard to do in a live coaching call. Besides, coaching is really intended to help me apply what I've learned and actually go do something. And I can't do that in a video either. Like, part of what I might need to do is to hold you accountable. I can't do that in virtual training, right? Like my video can't say, hey, go do that in 3 days and check back in. It's not a good format. So they're all a little bit different. So they all come together. It's like a recipe, but you want to stick with those 5. And if you do, then you're guaranteed to be a scalable delivery. That's kind of where we go off that path, is where we start creating services that we just can't scale.
Yeah, creating services that won't scale and creating headaches for ourselves, which brings us back to the stories that you told earlier. Frank, I love the simplicity of what you laid out. It's like 5 Lego pieces, and you can pick 2 or 3 or all 5 of the pieces, and you can stack them up in different combinations to create your unique offer that you want to bring to marketplace. You don't have to pick one of the 5. You just have 5 ingredients to come up with the best. I really love the simplicity of that. Let's, before we wrap up here, I want to talk about the book, because you've got I'm actually going to bring this up on screen here for us. So you've got a great lineup here of, these are bullet points, like what's inside the book and why should people check it out. Again, this is it is the Scalable Consulting book that just came out yesterday, but how to raise your prices and get your clients to thank you for it. How to stop selling your services and it will actually generate more revenue. How to tell if you have the winning offer before you even try to sell it. We just talked about the 5 delivery methods. I think that's really key. How to get validation on the offer quickly, not spending, how to not spin your wheels in that process. 4-step process to doing the strategy session, so people actually will hire you at the end. Oops, I got a little pop up on the screen. And 4 psychological stages that your prospects of your prospects that you need to know, and what you need to say at each stage to move them through the process. Because if you're delivering the wrong message, or let me say the right message at the wrong time, you're going to lose people in the process. So this is great. I want to make sure, folks, I'm going to put this in the chat now for people that are with us live. It's scalableconsultingbook.com. Scalableconsultingbook.com. That's where you can go and learn more about Frank. You can see the book that just came out by that same title. Frank, what else do folks need to know to enter your world? They can find you on Book of Experts. That's one place where we want them to check you out. What else should they know about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you go to scalableconsultingbook.com, there, we link to also, you can connect with me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn Frank Bria, it's really easy. And also, if you just go to frankbria.com, I've got a number of projects. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so if I don't have my hand in a couple of different pies all at the same time, it's no fun. So there's a couple of, you got to link back to the original book Scale, and some other work that I've done there as well. But, connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a note. I'm on Facebook as well. Feel free to drop me a note. I love chatting with folks and just, bouncing ideas around. So feel free to do that. If you connect with me on LinkedIn or something like that, just make sure in the note you go, hey, I saw your book, or something that'll connect the dots, so I don't think you're, a bot from Ukraine or something like that. So
it's awful that we have to do that these days. Yes, I'm actually really a human. And Frank, I know you have the high ticket programs. I've heard about those. I'm really interested in looking at the book, because that's how I'm going to enter your world. And that's what I would share with folks. I think this is a great way to get to know Frank and the work that he's doing.
Yeah.
Super, super. Frank, I appreciate you taking the time to come on Book of Experts TV. Again, we've been overdue to take a deep dive, but it feels like the perfect time with the book coming out, the updated from what the work you've been doing over the last 5 or 6 years, specifically around the scale and now Scalable Consulting. Anything else that I should share before we wrap up here?
I would just say a lot of people who are looking at this and they're thinking, I'm not sure if this is for me or if it's related to me. I would say if you are someone who has a high valued skill, okay, and you find that you have to be the one to deliver it, like you are in the squeeze, you can't seem to offload it to somebody else, can't seem to hire other people. That is the warning sign. That's the siren. That's the siren going off at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's telling you something's off with that business model. So if that's you, this is exactly who this is written for. And I would encourage you to take a look.
That's a perfect frame of reference. I'm glad you hit that button right as we exit here. Frank, appreciate your time coming on. We'll be talking more. And if you want to learn more about Frank, again, you can find him on Book of Experts. Many subject matter experts who are bringing their story, their impact, and their influence to your world as well. Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.